आपने देखा होगा, we are getting into live streaming now. अभी थोड़ी देर में लाइव शुरू हो जाएगा. So I think all audience and all speakers here, welcome to all of you for this exciting time. And all of you can mute your speaker at this moment. Some ring is going on. आप किसी के उसमें phone आ रहा है. Yeah. So, so So for all the audience, let me introduce to all of you that this is the one of the best time of December, that we have extreme panel speakers here who's and who in terms of public sector as well as in the technology domain. So let me introduce to all of you to our new webinar, that is transforming public sector through blockchain. So let me introduce each of the panelists first. We have in the row, if you look at it, we have Mr. Satya Gupta, Dr. Satya Gupta, and he is the chairman of Blockchain Proprietary Forum. We have Mr. S.L. Bankar, who was ex-member of Competition Commission of India, also director in Elteridium. We have Rakesh Kumar Upadhyay, who is former chairman of BSNL and TCIL, and is also the director in Elteridium. We have Venu Borra. He is an expert on blockchain technocrat who has worked in Standard Charters and has two startups of his own, and he's an advisor on many of the startups. We have Mr. Kamlesh Nagware, who is the founder of FSC Capital. He's somebody who I have seen rising from a young guy who is just a blockchain enthusiast to somebody who is now venturing into venture capital world of Web3. So I mean, it's exciting time. I mean, to be very frank, first of all, I want to ask all of you how you feel. I mean, how the things are going on. I mean, I'm really excited to be here. Satya sir, to start from you first.
Yes.
I mean, let me start from you. How you think the last 20 years has been in terms of public sector growth, the inclination of government toward digitalization, and how the whole India growth story has been in the public sector domain. I mean, you are somebody who has worked in telecom and other public sector domains as well, railway for that matter. And how the whole 20 years has been as per your outlook, before I go to the next
Oh,
one.
thank you, Professor Akhil. It's a great opportunity to meet all our ex-colleagues also and who are having passion for blockchain. And I'm really thankful. As you asked for last 20 years, the public sector actually, as you know, this public sector and especially in telecom, 23 years back, two great public sectors were created in telecom. One is the BSNL. Actually, that time I was with the regulator in 2000.
20.
And other was my pet company, which I treat as my own baby, Railtel. So both were created in 2000, actually. And as you see, the BSNL and Upadhyay Saab has been there from beginning, and then even chairman, MD. So he knows more about that, and he will let you know also. So the BSNL, of course, have gone through its ups and downs because of, actually, I will like to call them man-made intervention, actually. As far as the government policy is concerned, they were really very good when they corporatized the Department of Telecom Services to be converted into a public sector. And that was based on a famous report of Dr. M. Atraya, the famous who brought the telecom liberalization white paper, that regulator, the licensor, and operator, all three have to be separate. Going by that, government decided the Department of Telecom Services should be separated into a separate PSU, and that is how the BSNL was created. And it was really going great guns, actually. It was giving a great competition to the new player, the competitors actually. A great competition was given to the competitors, not because they were the incumbent operator, because they had a vision and the leadership and the officers actually who were means very dedicated and married to the cause of the government that services department have to be separated but should run as efficiently as a private sector will do, and they actually did that. In between, of course, some mishaps happened and all that, and now if you go now they are just coming back actually. Of course, government is behind them, and because the nobody wants in the country a duopoly kind of thing actually. So and they are coming back now, and as per the media reports and the reports from the board of BSNL, they will be profitable in 2026 actually. So that is what has happened to BSNL, but it has set the tone. It has led actually. It has led the keeping the prices low in case of mobile also, and in case of broadband also in Wi-Fi. Actually, they set the ball actually. It is other way round. Normally, the competitor sets the ball, but here the tariff ball is set by the BSNL, even if they do it at a loss kind of thing, and that is what is keeping the telecom services affordable. Also the social angle here actually in rural area where I am working, it is all and it is only BSNL actually. Rural area, if you go beyond 2 lakhs gram panchayat, the 4.5 lakhs villages are there. There, if you need any kind of connectivity, any tower, any exchange, you have to go to BSNL only actually. BSNL 70,000 towers are in rural area actually. No other operator have like that actually. So that is the strength of BSNL actually. On the fixed line, they have a great strength. So that is what about the BSNL. Now let me come to another public sector, the RailTel actually. The RailTel was created as basically out of a division of the IRCON, the Indian Railway, which I was heading. In fact, I had created it as a private company called IRCON Telenet Private Limited, actually, and I was its first founding director. But as the government will have the wisdom that time, the changed government and our minister, railway minister that time, Mamta Banerjee, and she told we should make it a public sector actually. She had the vision that time, at least, as you know, Madam Mamta, actually, she of late she becomes erratic, but sometime her decisions are having far-reaching thing, and her decision to convert the railtel from a private sector to public sector is paying the dividends to government also, to everyone, and they are one of the very high profit making public sector in telecom in the country actually. Their stock, if you are monitoring, because I have a sentimental reason, in last 1 year it has tripled. Can you imagine a public sector stock, first a public sector going for a IPO, even in a competitive market, and then delivering 3x 3x returns to the shareholders in a year. So that is what, and Railtel have its own, you can say, specialty. Of course, they have a dedicated right of way. Their uptime is very high. They are very professional, and now they are beating a lot of private operator in the competitive environment, in the tenders actually. Lot of tenders they are winning. Every day we are reading something or other where the other private operators are also competing. So that is my take on the public sector as far as in telecom is concerned. These two companies in last 20 years who came, and they have delivered, and they will be delivering more actually. So I'll
So,
stop
so
here.
yeah. So, what I will continue from what you have said right now. So, I'll go to Rakesh Upadhyay, sir, and then I'll go to Pankaj sir on this. So, Upadhyay sir, whatever Satya sir has said, you have been the operational head of those entities. I mean, I mean, somebody who has seen public sector as a leader. So I want to really, because what the intention behind all these things is to merge the technological sector and public sector together when we go to the further questions. So before that, for the audience, we need to know exactly what the story is. So you have seen 20 years of leadership in the public sector domain. So what all change in the outlook has happened in the last 20 years? What was before and what was the intention before and now how things have changed? If you give an outlook to people, then we will go for the technology cover further questions. Over to you, sir. Sir, your speaker is mute. Sir, your mic is muted.
Thank you,
Yes, sir.
Akhil, and good morning to everybody. Well, Emily, if you talk of public sector in past 20 years, so I will say that as a whole, public sector has progressed very fast in past 20 years. As a whole, leave BSNL apart. BSNL has definite reasons for not progressing as well, but that would be a part of separate discussion altogether. So, but as a whole, public sector has grown very fast in past 20 years. And I will say that in case of corporate governance, etc., it has proved to be much, much better than the private sector. So corporate governance has been the ace point. And technology adoption, of course, I will say that technology adoption also has been fast, but not as fast as it should be. So that has got its own reasons because the change, the attitude of change lags in public sector, and public sector because of its sheer size as a whole. If you see big public sectors, because of their sheer size, any technological change adoption is a big challenge. So with these words, I would like to proceed further. 2 points that public sector has progressed very fast in past 20 years as a whole, but technological adoption has been slower because of its sheer size, and there are many other factors, complex nature of integrating any technology into the existing system, because they generally have legacy systems, and whenever you want to integrate any new technology, the integration itself becomes very big challenge.
So, sir, over to you only again. Just one extended question, one essential question. Because, sir, in the last, if you look at 20 years and all those things, private sector has its own challenges, public sector has its own challenges. Why often people say that public sector structure is slightly more complex? Because you yourself have said in the conclusion that it's sheer size and complexities. So some of the highlighted complexities, if you can just highlight before we go to the technological experts here, so that we can merge together all those things together. I think that will give us a much more better answer. So what is the general complexities in a public sector domain?
The general complexities, if you trace them, most of them have their origin in the legacy regions. But then the mindset not to change, that is another big problem. But seeing all these difficulties, even after all these difficulties, they have tried to adopt new technologies. You see the banking sector. I mean, State Bank of India, Punjab National Bank, they are mammoth banks if you compare with any private bank of the time. But then once they decided that they have to do, they have done it. They have brought, PNB was the first PSU bank to bring a CMS system, and SBI was not far behind. And now today the scene is entirely different. So once they decide to do something, they have been generally able to do. I mean, if you leave about few public sectors which were incorrigible, and in the beginning of discussion, we mentioned about NTC, etc., National Textile Corporation, they were incorrigible because technology change was so huge that it was just not possible for them to do it. Mr. Gupta mentioned about RailTel. You see, RailTel is another example of developing very fast. I mean, it's a purely project company, and BSNL is a predominantly service company, whereas RailTel is a project company. And they have been able to implement their projects quite well, and they have progressed. Their order book is overflowing always. So it's a mixed bag. I will say it's a mixed bag. But the region you mentioned, why they are not able to, I mean, what were the complexities? Complexity was their size, and their employee base was generally more than what is required in view of new technologies. And when you have to compete in the market, you have to see all these aspects. This becomes very important aspect. I mean, if your wage bill, your top line, how can you progress? So those are the part of complexities. But I must say that most of the companies, most of the public sector companies have either come out of this problem of overstaffing, or they are on the verge of coming out of this overstaffing issue. Not only overstaffing, but aging employee base. Then technologically poor, they are not equipped with the new technologies. The new in a competitive market, you have to have marketing orientation, you have to have sales orientation. Technology is available. Technology is available, and there are technology companies who really implement it for you. What you have to do is you have to manage. You have to do. I mean, that will bring to later part of the discussion where contract management comes into picture. We are plagued with inefficiency. We are plagued with delays, and so the delay breeds corruption. So that also cannot be brushed aside. That due to inefficiencies and delays in public sector, the scope for corruption remains, which was a big problem earlier. Now it is reducing.
Thank you so much, sir.
Professor Akhil, I want to add 1-2 line on that.
Okay.
Yeah,
Sure,
yeah. Actually, Upadhyay Sahab have already explained, but there is another thing which I like to bring to the table because it is an informal, free-flowing talk. Actually, the public sector, and as you have asked, the complexity, basically what ails the progress or success of a public sector. There is a concept of what we call nuances of 3 C's. Actually, that has to be known to everyone, and that is playing. These nuances of 3 C's is these public sectors actually, though there are good governance, guidance, everything is there, but then there are a lot of limitations on them. These 3 C's actually is a combination of CVC, CAG, and CBI. Like these 3 things actually, which are not there with the private sector actually. So these 3 C's are sometime make the role of the public sector management very, very cautious, very, very limited, and they don't have the full freedom to take the decisions. So that also I wanted to highlight at this stage because
I couldn't agree more with you, Gupta Sahab, but
yes.
it is very well said. I mean, most of the public sector executives always fear, when they take a decision, productivity or progress of the organization is not the only concern. One of the bigger concerns from them is that not to attract any of these 3 C's in their decision. See, I mean, lack of transparency, lack of accountability are 2 other complex, other 2 issues which we often see in public sector. However, technology has solutions for this, and some of the companies have exposed themselves to the public scrutiny, thereby reducing the fear of these 3 C's on their executives. So those things are also important when you talk of a PSU and their progress.
Great, sir. Great. I mean, the bottom line of 3 C's, I really like it. But with that 3 C's, let me go to Mr. Bankar, sir. Bankar, sir, you are not part of 3 C's, I know, but you're also
No.
you're part of Competition Commission. And as a policy watchdog, I would say, how you see the public sector in the last 20 years? I mean, from the progress and what are the challenges and hurdles as a policymaker you have faced in terms of public sector competition, etc. If you can just give a nutshell, I'm not in a detail, at least in a nutshell of exactly
Yeah.
you felt in the last 20 years.
Okay. Thank you, Dr. Akhil, and good morning to everybody. And this is also, if you mentioned about competition commission, then it is also starting with C, so you can add 1/4 C, and it has a stringent provision in the law. This is a lighter this thing. Yes, one of most of the important points have been covered by Upadhyay Sahab and Dr. Satya ji. But to understand the entire gamut of public sector understanding, I think we have to understand the historical background. And in the present scenario where we are expecting them to be efficient and competitive in the present economic scenario, but they have a historical background for why they are not able to compete in many of the things. And most of the PSUs, you will agree that have been not created on economic considerations. They have been created on different consideration, political, giving an employment, considering the different geographical regions, and all different. Some of the self-reliance and all those factors were very important in history when they were initially created. Now the new PSUs are on a different philosophy, but old PSUs, which are already there, like railways, bank, telecom, or other coal or ONGC and all those big Navratnas, which has now survived and have been doing it excellently. They have a different background, but historical background to be understood for understanding that why they are not very profit making and competitive in the present scenario or last 20 years or so. What are the changes have taken place in this? In most of the PSUs, those have been historically created earlier were, as I mentioned, on political consideration, and the technology adopted that time was also prevailing technology. And that technology has not been upgraded to the present technological advancement level. Second thing is about the main problem issue was like a labor force, the labor laws and labor. They were untrained. They were not fully trained. They were not exposed to present technology and all those things. So many of the places you will find the infrastructure is good, but the manpower is not very fully trained and skilled. So they are not able to exploit the full asset or full infrastructure or whatever is given to them. So this is one of the reason. Then, as mentioned by the different colleagues by here, that PSUs are actually controlled by different guidelines. As in a private, it is the management which has a full freedom to do here. Here, in PSUs, management is not having that kind of liberty or the freedom to take all decisions. Many decisions are taken at the government level, political level, and they have to comply with those decisions. Plus, they are governed with lot of rules, regulations, which are not there in the private sector. So, these are actually stripling them to grow in a competitive environment, many of them. But wherever liberalization has taken place or freedom is given to management, many of the PSUs have now excelled very well, and in world over they are competing not only in India, they are doing competitive bidding in international market, and they are getting orders also. So this is one of the reason that why they are not competitive and what they are, but things are changing presently. Government also is considering giving freedom to the management, and many of the PSUs have also upgraded their technology. They are recruiting the latest from the campus recruitment. They are also doing, freedom is there to recruit. Earlier these things were not there. It was all different kind of recruitment process was there. If someone recommends, minister recommends, or MLA MP recommends, or in many of the places when the lands were acquired, that time you were by force you have to employ the local force, no landlord, you have to give them a job before you appoint someone outside people. So that was the background. But now many of them are coming as banks. You have mentioned that Upadhyay mentioned banks are doing very well. There are some good PSUs are also there, ONGC, NTPC, Coal India, BEL, BHEL, HL is in a defense PSU were doing very well, though it's a monopoly type of situation, but still competing in an international market in many of these things. So to understand their background and competing with private industry or the international global players, things are changing, but this will take time because historical legacy will always be still be pressing them to be not to be very efficient and competitive, but as the things, generational things are changing, labor force is also changing, trend skilled employees are coming, and pay scales, etc., are also being revised. Earlier, their pay was very low for PSU's employees because but the government protections were there, so they were happy with that. But now this young generation do not like less pay because they are very qualified, intelligent, and got education in good education. So they prefer to be in a good package and good working condition and good environment where they can do freedomly whatever innovations and what they want to do. So such kind of stippling factors were there. They were restrained to be there, and in some of that process in competition, many of the good PSUs have unfortunately died down. Like uh, textile area where good so many government mills were there, but they all have closed down because they could not compete. They could not technologically advance in many of the things. So these are the some of the reasons. Plus, in a PSUs earlier, motive itself was not profit making. They were not created to make profit. Actually, they were created on a different consideration. Whereas now, to survive economically in global market, you have to have some profit. Otherwise, you cannot progress. You cannot upgrade the technology. You cannot upgrade the skill, and you cannot survive in the market. So the motive itself was different, so that you cannot expect something when your basic principle philosophy is something else and outcome is something else. It is not possible. But in last 20 years, many changes have taken, and we notice that policy changes have also taken. Government is also aware. Many things have liberalized, and they are now open to compete in the market, and some of them are really doing very well. So hope in remaining some of the coming years further progress will be made in this space. Many of who are efficient and competent will survive. Remaining may go out of the competition also because the world economy will be on a competition basis only, because now no borders are there. Earlier it was within our own territory we were doing whatever, but now world is one. So you have to have an efficiency and competency to survive in an open market. With this, I think can shift to other.
Great insight, sir. If I want to summarize all three of you, great insight. You have given the principal philosophy, and you're exactly talking like a competition commission person who knows exactly how the foundation has been built up. And it really makes sense now that what the intention was and how this has happened and why changes are becoming difficult for public sector. They are changing. I'm not denying the fact, but that it's much difficult compared to a private sector organization because the intention, as I said, the foundation, the intention, the pillar were different in different scenarios. With that, let me go my technological expert. So I'll start with Kamlesh and then Venu. So the question is common to both of you, but I'll take a view from Kamlesh and then go to Venu on this. Kamlesh, what do you see in the last 20 years in terms of technological advancements in the last 20 years? We will go to the public sector integration, the later questions, but I want to really know exactly how the technological landscape has advanced in the last 20 years, and you see how they have become much important part of integration of most of the enterprises. So over to you, Kamlesh first. Yeah.
Yeah. So thank you, Akhil. And I think when we interact with many PSUs and the public sector, so now they are considering and giving importance to technology, and there are lots of technology advancement, innovation. So even in this month, I was in the NTPC PMI Institute, and they are talking about the technology innovation summit and inviting technologies people to how NTPC could use the technology for their green energy initiative or the efficiency process. So the similar way, in the last couple of years, we have seen the journey of UPI, journey of Aadhaar stack or India stack, and the similar way, I think now everyone talking about the digital public infrastructure, how you could use this technologies and create the infrastructure where that could be used for the public services, like how the Aadhaar stack now you could use the KYC system very effectively built on the Aadhaar stack and and the and payment services on the UPI. So this technology change the adoption of the and use of the this PSU infrastructure. Also, not just a traditional technology, but now when the blockchain and the AI and other new technologies emerge, now this all this PSU and the public sector adopting the technology. Whether we talk about the NPCI, whether we talk about the NIC or NTPC, even I think exploring the blockchain and all other public sector, like even Aadhaar and Tech is thinking about having the ONDC. We can see the great example. So like how the technology is changing the similar way, public sector is adopting the technology or consider the technology to how they can use the technology to transform their existing business processes and create the digital public infrastructure for the public goods. So I think I see the technology infrastructure playing very important role for the use of this public sector services for the more efficient and the trustworthy manner.
Sure, I think Kamlesh, that really sets the tone. So over to you, Venu sir. Exactly what you feel in the last 20 years has been changed in terms of technological perspective, and why it has become taking a leading force now for most of the technology disruption, even in the public sector.
Well, let's kind of understand. Well, to begin with, thank you for the opportunity here, and thank you. It's amazing to be part of this esteemed panel here. So let's understand. You talked about 20 years now. Now that means technology as whole structure has grown exponentially, right? 20 years back, it was all about just a email service that you had, dial-up service. Now, the generation now, nobody would have known what exactly is a dial-up. To be honest, now everybody's bothered about the speed, and they're going at large speeds now. We have seen, as somebody like me who's born in 80s, I can see dial-up and then broadband and now 5G internet, right? That's technology for you. It's gone up exponentially, according to me. And each transition or each generation has been visibly looking at these changes, and when they're looking at it, and there was a conscious effort to use this exponential growth into different ways. That's how we have seen a lot of digitalization, the so-called digitalization that's coming across now. When we talk of 20 years, right, that basically would mean two things for us. Okay, and there was always a set of people that welcome technology, and there was another set of people who were kind of cautious, and they were kind of sitting back and seeing what changes will it bring. So there was a constant tussle between these two kind of people, and that's how the adoption of these technologies have come into existence. Now, nobody really knew what blockchain is 20 years back. Nobody really knew what is AI capable of. Nobody even really knew what technology can do in terms of redefining these infrastructures. Now, coming to a public private partnership contracts or a public PSUs are concerned, right? Now, there is a legacy baggage. I hope the fellow panelists would agree to that. There is a legacy baggage and understanding of, when I say legacy baggage, be it thought process, be it infrastructure, and then of course, be it the new changes that are coming very quickly than expected. So the process itself is slow. But when I be more specific, what technology can bring here is the much needed elements of automation that can reduce the effort that is normally taking to deliver a certain aspect of the business or an outcome. Two is ensure that you are streamlining the processes which are participatory in nature. Which, when I say participatory in nature, look at the PPPs, the contracts that are there. These are, I have esteemed experts here. They would probably comply to this. It's so complex that you have multiple number of people involved, right? It's not easy to kind of get a go ahead from them or get a transparent system of engagement. Now, when you use the newer technologies that are at hand right now, we could solve these aspects of transparency and quick audit, and then a visibility that is needed across these processes. So I'll probably end that at this point, and then probably take up the aspects. But there is definitely an exponential growth that is there, and I see that the adoption is quietly growing, and then I see that this should happen in a structured manner, is what I could say.
Okay, thanks, Venu. I think both of you have set a tone for us. Okay, the first of all, you have really set us a tone that Venu, from your point, I can also add to one thing that in last 20 years, when you said dial-up to internet to broadband, but
Correct.
the changes have become much more drastic and faster now. I mean,
Exactly.
when you see the last
Exponential is
20
what I
years,
would.
from dial-up to broadband, it was almost 10 years. Almost, if you look at 8 to 10 years when actually commercially people started using 1 Mbps. I mean,
Correct.
that was almost 8 years almost. I mean,
Right.
99 to, I remember the sci-fi, there was a company called sci-fi Satyam, I don't know, and they used to create the dial-up and there's a tune used to come before connecting it. And
Remember, those were
those
the
were,
days when you paid 8 rupees to 12 rupees for an incoming call. Now
yeah,
you're
seriously,
complaining of a 5G speed of for free. So
seriously,
that's
seriously,
the level.
seriously. So somehow the customers, sir, your speaker is mute, sir, Rakesh, sir. You want to say something?
To wrap to Venu, that 6 to 8 rupees for incoming call we were paying. Now we are free.
Yes, sir.
And still we are complaining, sir. I mean, see, the customer
There's a lot
expectation
of
has
complaint.
gone drastically high. But the customer expectation has gone drastically high. I mean, that's also one of the questions I want to ask before we're to the panelists as well. That the consumer has also changed in the last 20 years. I mean, and that's the reason why technology has also taken one of the
Even
leading
now,
factors that
customer
can.
complain about the 5G. I keep
Yeah.
complaining.
Seriously,
Right.
seriously, seriously. Seriously, I mean, nobody look at the past and see exactly कहाँ से कहाँ आ गए. I mean, it has become very different scenario altogether. With that in mind, let me shift the gear and the queue here, and let me start with Banga sir here first. So, Banga sir, I want to ask you, what is the outlook changed in the last 4 years after post-COVID, to be very frank, in terms of liberty in policy of the customer of the country, in terms of how much they're adopting the technology, how much they're open to technology before we go to the blockchain and other things. I mean, how much the government and the public sector is happy to try on these technologies for the consumers.
Well, this very interesting question. Actually, now no one can afford to be lacking in the technology. If you have to survive, you have to have latest technology adopted in your system. If you don't adopt this latest technology, you will vanish from the scene. There is no other way by which you can survive without adopting to technology, because technological advancement are so fast, so quick, and so remunerative for the inventor as well as the consumers. Consumers adopt very fast technology now. Earlier, consumers were also reluctant to accept new technology. Now the psychology has changed. Human psychology, the young generation is very, very thorough in this thing. Actually, when the mobile phone came, most of you are expert in telecom. I take the example of this only. So it changing from the dialing system to mobile and a push button thing technology. Also, many people were reluctant to adopt that. They were not very keen, old generation people. But now, the young generation, even the dialing numbers on the screen, this also is for them it is a burdensome. They want that by touch itself automatically it should happen, or by facial reading it should. The artificial intelligence thing which is coming, and it may be possible once you open your screen and it will automatically recognize you and you can say this number, and it is happening now. The Siri and other things which is in the phone, you don't have to even dial the numbers. It is, you tell them you dial Dr. Akhil and it will dial. So you see, this much of upgradation and the latest in technology things, it cannot be ignored. They will have to be adopted by all the PSUs or the any even for private sector also. It is a challenge. It is not that private sector is placed in a very good comfortable position in comparison to PSUs. Even private sector also you have to be always on your tenterhook to adopt the new technology. Otherwise, you will lose in competitive market and you will not be affordable. You may survive by manufacturing many things and inventing, doing this thing, but consumers will not accept that outdated thing. That's why in a global market, you see things are how quickly happening. We always in India talk about the Chinese product here. They are cheap, they are new in approach, everything. So many things in India, they are being manufactured, but they are not economical or they are not as attractive as they are made in China type of thing. So this is one of the example. I'm not promoting that we should adopt the Chinese product here, but there are challenges and we have to technological challenges and we have to accept them and upgrade our skill and asset, infrastructure, everything to always remain ahead of the others. And that is the compulsion for everybody, not for only PSUs, for even private industry, private manufacturer, even service sectors. Service sectors also need immediately new thing. If your service is not satisfactory, the fellow will shift immediately to other supplier or other service provider. So it is challenging for everybody to keep with technological upgradation. No one can ignore or no one can afford to delay it. That okay, this is a new technology, we'll adopt after 4 years, 5 years, down the line. But in 4 years, there will be another new technology, new things. Nothing will remain. This will become irrelevant. So. R&D and new technology both has to be a integral part of the PSUs as well as the private sector. So this is a compulsion and technological upgradation has no limitations. Every time one technology generates to another challenge and another technology you adopt, then there will be another new technology. No, few years back, no one was expecting this kind of changes in a technology. But now there is, I think it has a Pandora box. You keep on opening it, things, new things will be coming out of it. So this is a compulsion for everybody to accept the new technological changes, whether it is a private or a PSU. And of course, it is a costly thing. It won't be easy for everybody, but for survival, you have to have some portion for technological upgradation in your resources and always a team of people who will be always looking for new technology to adopt in your organization. Otherwise, later or sooner you are going to be obsolete and out of the date, you non-competitive, and you will die natural death without any regret.
मुझे आपकी बात याद आई सर. मतलब आप remember once there was a webinar for blockchain and you said one very interesting point. As a competition commission, I mean as a public sector regulator, our job is not to see whether technology is able to achieve a particular country's production target, but हमें ये भी देखना होता है कि consumer should not be harmed, and
Yes.
that becomes a much more bigger priority for us because that is very difficult for us to even measure also. I mean, whether the consumer is actually being protected with the technology or not. And I mean, I remember you have very crucial, strong point you said at that time.
Yeah.
That yes, sir.
Yeah.
Please speak
Yeah,
about your view.
actually, what for you are surviving? You are doing business or doing this thing for consumers only. And if consumers are not one, consumer is a main thing for you. Do you want to satisfy them? If consumer is not satisfied, your survival is not expected at all. You will automatically will go off the scene. So
I mean, I
consumers.
remember your quote. I want to add your quote, sir, that you said very rightly. The consumer wants experience, but
Yes.
government want consumers' welfare. So
Yes.
the point is, sometimes because of experience, you keep adopting technology as a consumer level, और वो बाद में जाके पता चलता है कि वो how much it make me abusing or you gave an example of I remember the ad market मतलब
Yes.
आपको जो ad मोबाइल पे आ रहे हैं लैपटॉप
Yes.
में आ रहे हैं they are making sure consumer are attracted to one place to another. So I mean with that I want to add to Bhagat sir and then I will go to Rakesh sir and then to Satya sir. What is the regulatory challenge? What is the intent of regulatory mechanism? Because reason because when I go to Kamlesh and Venu on this exactly how blockchain will be transforming in public sector, one of the major challenges is the regulatory challenge. I mean, in the sense that as a policymaker, what is the objective as a regulatory framework you create?
See, in one sentence, one can say that proper governance is the responsible and responsibility which which cannot be served without a robust regulatory framework. So, a robust regulatory framework is required so that any service, I mean, there are sectoral regulators. So, in that particular sector, consumers are not duped. And at the same time, that is, consumer welfare is taken care of. At the same time, the technology adoption is not stifled in any way. So, whatever technologies are available, they must be promoted in a healthy environment with the aim in mind of consumer. Consumer is at the center of that. At the same time, they have to see that there is a healthy competition amongst the various players who are in that particular sector. In coming back to, let's take example of blockchain implementation in for public services. If you see, then we have to see the legal aspects. So regulator is also responsible for seeing that the legal aspects of implementation, that it is not violative of any existing laws or has potential to violate laws in the future. So regulator is tasked with seeing that the legal compliances are there and the service or technology which is being adopted or technology which is being implemented in public service is legally compliant in all respects. Security is another concern. Any technology, as a matter of fact, security, so legal security, security aspects also is responsibility of a regulator to see that security compliances are also there in place. Privacy, consumer privacy, or customer privacy is of paramount importance. It has been always, but of late it has come to limelight. So privacy of the consumers is safeguarded. There are enough safeguards built into the technology itself to see that privacy is not violated. That is also a responsibility of a regulator. And keeping these three basic pillars in mind, a robust regulatory system will have to be designed and implemented whenever we are trying to implement technology in consumer services, in public services, I need to say.
Sure, sir. Thank you. Thanks, sir. That's a very, very valuable point. So, Satya, sir, I mean, extending the same question to you because you are somebody who is in this boat of both. I mean, public sector, being a public sector servant, and also you are somebody who is also somebody who really emphasize on blockchain and how blockchain can transform the public sector. So, I want to say exactly what is the real good application of blockchain in the public sector, and what you feel are the challenges which may happen in terms of regulatory or legal, which may become a bottleneck. And I want a solution from Kamlesh and Venu of that. So over to you, Satya. Sir, you're mute. Sir, you're mute. Sir,
Yeah, sorry, actually. So, as our esteemed panelists have already mentioned about this technology part for the PSU and then regulation, actually, let me add to that. Basically, actually, the regulator in general are technology neutral. So they will treat all the technology at par. They will, if they have to encourage, they will encourage all the technologies. Actually, that is the stance of Indian regulator as well as Indian government also. It is more like technology neutrality. And so that is there. But when you talk about the usage of or adoption of technology, especially in the public sector, we have to go back, let us say 3 years back, the UN and ITU World Telecom and Information Society Day, or the theme was accelerating digital transformation into increase the productivity, efficiency, and customer satisfaction. That was the theme 3 years back, and that said it all. Actually, there is a UN 2030 agenda on connectivity and technology, and all the technologies have been mentioned there. So basically, we have to see, like when was asked, talking about digitalization, because digitization happened 25 years back. That was a technology breakthrough, actually, and that time we used to say packetize or perish, this internet thing, and all those things happened. And now in the digital transformation, basically the simple understanding of digital transformation is use of IT infrastructure, IT systems that include hardware, software, to empower your organization, that is, let us say PSU itself, and your staff, your employee, your officer, your board, actually, and also your customer, actually. So that is the digital transformation. You have to use the technology, that is the IT technology, the digital technology, to empower everything so that they become more efficient and the customer become more satisfied, or customer gets what he expect, what he wants, actually. So that is all. So everyone, actually, for last 3 years, because it was a UN agenda, are working towards that. Most of PSUs have already adopted those technology, but then it is, one is the policy, or one is the dictate, or a vision, other is actually how to do it, actually. So I had written a article, and that was 3 years back, and that also incidentally happened to be 3 C's of digital transformation, not the earlier 3 C. So those 3 C of digital transformation were: first C was connectivity, second C was content, and third C was capacity. And I will be emphasized on the capacity. Connectivity is all telecom, what we are talking, that you have to be connected, and there should be a leased line connection even at home, VPN, when we were working from home, actually, so that you have a office experience of connectivity. And then the content, these apps like our India Stack is there, and Aadhaar and UPI, all these apps, lot of apps have come our own only, which helps in digital transformation if you adopt those apps. But how to do it, and that is where capacity is nothing but how you can do it yourself, how you can make use of the technology, how you can make use of these apps to improve yourself, your efficiency, your team efficiency, and your customer experience. And it is all about empowering everyone, actually, and it is the technology which can empower. So that is the in general about the digital transformation. There in the UN itself, the various technologies were mentioned. 5G was one of them, Industry 4.0, and your IoT and blockchain also. So blockchain, basically, as you know, blockchain promises that first it can do whatever is missing on the normal technology like AI, ML, whatever is missing, they can bridge the gap. Whether there are ethical issues, whether there are trust issue, or there are security issues. So that is where. So as far as usage of blockchain in the public sector is there, no stopping by any regulator or any government, because they are technology neutral. Only thing is you have to have capacity to adapt that technology. For that, skilling is required, and expertise is required, training is required, and that is what is missing, actually. And we have already working, actually, the blockchain can really immediately bring the efficiency part that is missing in the public sector, mainly because of the lack of accountability, actually. So efficiency, and there are some domain of the public sector, and one, of course, we have already been talking, public private partnership. lot of problems blockchain smart contract can solve there actually, especially the arbitration case. Actually, one of the thing which public sector are impacted is this arbitration. Actually, most of the arbitration cases are lost by the public sector. Actually, the famous example of Delhi Metro, as you know, they have to pay 4,000 crore to a company as a arbitration award, which is upheld by Supreme Court also. So if they have to pay that money, they will be wiped off. Their balance sheet will become zero. Their net worth will become zero. And they are struggling, and there is a timeline. That happened because of these faulty agreement in the PPP. And those can be actually handled or corrected by using smart contract of blockchain. So that is where blockchain can help immediately in public-private partnership contracts. The other thing where they can help is supply chain management. Actually, supply chain management can become very efficient actually if you use blockchain there. And there are examples of that. Same thing is on the HR side also. Everywhere actually, according to us, though we are from the blockchain part productivity forum, we know it. Every problem of public sector actually can be handled or solved by using some attribute of blockchain. So that is where I'll stop, Professor Akhil.
Thank you so much. So thank you so much for bridging that particular contest. So let me go to Kamlesh on this. Kamlesh, I mean, you have heard Satya sir already. So
Yeah.
I want to ask you from the blockchain developer and as a leader of blockchain perspective, that what you see is the application of blockchain in the public sector domain, and how much the progress we have seen in the last 5-6 years in the blockchain public sector domain की जहाँ आपको लग रहा है कि हाँ progress हो रहा है.
Okay. So before that, even I want to like what Dr. Satya mentioned about the like regulator is technology neutral, and that is right. I think we should not see like regulator is not approving this technology or not allowing this technology. So because regulator also need to take care about the customer centric approach. It should not any technology can come and disrupt the customer experience or customer well-being. So let's maybe that's why everyone talk about like blockchain, regulator is not friendly, regulator is not approving, or so all these things. So, but regulator maybe need education, but if that is there, then I think they can take a right decision. So that is my belief. And about your question about like where we see the more technology adoption. So first, I think in India specific, we have seen many use cases happening in the public infrastructure, e-governance kind of use cases. We can see the Drive is one example, or another state government is building the governance infrastructure on blockchain. Second, I see especially in financial services and fintech space, we can see example of NPCI. We can see there's a separate company called IBBIC is created for focusing the blockchain infrastructure for banking services, and other fintech companies are using blockchain for whether it's a settlement, whether it's a tokenization, and other stuff. And third, where blockchain play a very important role in terms of supply chain traceability, provenance, counterfeit, and many applications from food to luxury goods and other items. And the fourth one, the digital identity, which is maybe related to the e-governance, but there are many use cases around the digital identity. We can see the live example of, let's say, DigiYatra, for example. So this the four areas where we see the more adoption happening, and not just the e-governance and public infrastructure, public services, but all the private and startups and everyone working towards the using in this specific areas. So I do not count about the crypto and other stuff, but this is the enterprise specific use cases.
Okay, so is there anything blockchain part which public sector might be doing? Anything which you have seen globally? I'm not saying India part. Anything where public sector is being involved?
Where?
Any hyperledger case, any blockchain use case in the public sector which you have in the globally atmosphere which you have seen in the public
So
sector domain?
in global, we can see the like how the blockchain they are using in the e-governance sector, especially in Europe, EBSI infrastructure. There are Canada using blockchain for e-governance and the digital services for the consumer and merchant. So this kind of use cases are already happening in Google too.
Okay. Okay. So over to Venu sir. Venu sir, I think you have heard Satya sir, you have heard Pankaj sir, and you have heard Kamlesh sir. So I'll combine all the three into one question for you. So
Okay.
you're somebody who has been connected globally as well in terms of blockchain use case in energy sector. You have been somebody who has been working with for I think smart grid technology for blockchain. I think Satya sir, and you have been working for a particular concept on that as well. So I want to ask with you first that first of all, what you see is the future of blockchain in the public sector domain? How much it is really going to be transforming public sector? Secondly, even if that is the case, what are the hurdles you see as a developer? Because you might be facing many investors, many stakeholders in between. What are the hurdles you have seen in the last 5 years?
Great question. So I'll probably answer in two parts. Now let's understand blockchain technology as such. All right, what exactly are we looking at? The blockchain technology, essentially, it's a mechanism to ensure the information being distributed through a shared database. Ensuring that you have immutability and information in a chronological order. So it's more of participatory in nature. So with that being said, when you have technology like this, where you write information in a chronological order or a sequential order, and you basically set rules to how the outcomes can be, that basically gives an opportunity to get into different industries. All right. So this basically gives you provision of understanding where the complete provenance of a given use case. So you brought up energy. All right. Nowadays you see a lot of issues around energy distribution, energy transportation, and so on. So I'll kind of bring attention to the energy sector here. Okay. The energy sector, uh, more specifically, the renewable energy sector right now, which is growing, needs to come up with some, two things majorly. One is distribution, and two is guarantees of origin. All right. So that is important for a sector which is growing and needs transparency. Now, when I say how we can do that, is blockchain is basically a group of entities that come forward, set up a process with rules, and that is recorded into this ledger, or distributed ledger rather. Now that basically helps understand a clear information step by step, which can be audited any given time, and that's important to achieve the goals of guarantees of origin and the storage, the evaluation of energy, where is the leakage and all that. And as Satyan sir said, it's a combination of multiple technologies. Renewable energy, for this case which I've been talking, is a combination of IoT sensors that basically evaluate how much solar panels, let's say an example of a solar energy, how much energy is being produced, how much is being stored, is done through IoT devices. Now, the reliability aspect is brought through blockchain, because now each devices keep streaming out information of, hey, this is the information, this is the amount of energy that's been produced, and you now need to transport it to a certain distribution center, let's say power grid for that matter. So this can be achieved with a combination of these technologies. And when we talk about typical utility or energy or say infrastructure, it's all controlled by the governments and the regulatory authorities, which need these aspects. How much of the energy is coming through, how much of the utility is spent through different parties. And that's how you basically create the opportunity for blockchain to enter and then try to solve it more sophisticated manner by smart metering, by creating the provenance in the whole supply chain of distribution, and so on. So the opportunities are huge. So when it comes to challenges, the second part, okay. So usually the big challenges understanding the whole ecosystem and how to use this. You see people talking about these technologies at a very high level, talking about its potential, but when you really get into the depth, as most would agree, that there are specific complexities involved. So I would probably say is an opportunity to kind of come up with a proof of concept will give a better idea, for which education is more important, and platforms like this can help create that awareness that, hey, this has a potential of creating a solution, and then we can take it further.
I mean, nice, Venu. I mean, you have conceptualized this so well in terms of how exactly technology should be adopted and in terms of how the regulatory challenges are being there. So let me go to the concluding question for all of us. What should be the ecosystem should be in terms of adopting blockchain for public sector? So ecosystem in the sense, what are the regulatory framework, how the regulatory framework should be designed accordingly. So I want input from each and every one of you to make sure how we can redesign. So I want technological, board developer input from Venu and Kamlesh, and a policy level, I want Satya sir, Banga sir, and Rakesh sir. Exactly what kind of framework should be there in for making sure the next 5-6 years you will have more public sector easy adoption in terms of blockchain and other technologies also in terms of how easily they can adopt and evolve in the public sector domain. So I'll start with Banga sir, and then we'll go to Satya sir, and then Rakesh sir, and then we'll go to Venu and Kamlesh. Banga sir, over to you.
Yeah, okay. So let me clarify one important point that we always talk about the regulators, but I have not come across where a regulator is creating an obstacle in adopting any technology. Actually, regulators' job is not to stop anybody to progress. No regulator, whatever kind of regulator you may have, it is always in a supportive role. It is like, very simple in competition. We generally used to give example. It is like a two football team playing game. The referee is not playing game. Referee is only watching someone should not do any foul or mischief and win the game. Whoever is best will definitely will win. So it is a competition among the two teams, and whoever plays within the framework of rules and regulation, he wins. So no regulator will anyway will be against the technological advancement, against the adoption of technology. But what regulator will most probably will try to ensure is that it should not harm the consumer, or it should not make disruption in the economy growth, or no destructive technology should be adopted to disturb the entire ecosystem, which is making a progress of economic growth or economic progress in the country. So regulators always try to assist the competitors or the actors who is in the field. So in coming years, I think the regulatory framework will be further liberalized. In fact, to assist the players to do many things in the market, because that will be the need of the hour. Everybody will need any progress needs everybody's a total involvement. Not that some of them pull them back, some of them want to go up. So progress can come only when all the stakeholders take joint steps and progress in that direction. Then only speedy progress can happen. Otherwise, if some of the stakeholders pulls someone who wants to go up to down, then naturally it is very difficult for the all the people to get progress. So regulators will always be helping, and in coming few years, I think the technology, as I mentioned earlier, also will be adopted by the players as well as the consumers, which is helpful to them. If it is not helpful, it is not giving them any benefit of this, then no technology will also survive. It will be of no use to have such kind of technology. If it is
So with a lighter note, Pankaj sir, when you say transparent,
Yeah.
किसी भी हम कॉन्ट्रैक्टर के पास जाके पिच अप करते हैं ब्लॉकचेन के बारे में, बोलते हैं कि ब्लॉकचेन का अच्छा फीचर ये है कि वो ट्रांसपेरेंट है, वो पहले ही पीछे हट जाते हैं उसके बाद कि भैया सो आई मीन लेट मी गो टू सत्य सर ऑन दिस. आई मीन सत्य सर, ये भी एक बहुत बड़ी पॉइंट है. वी शुड आल्सो कीप इन रियलाइज दैट वन ऑफ द मोस्ट ऑफ द फीचर्स ऑफ ब्लॉकचेन, how we can sensitize people that it is for good. I mean, sometimes when I say to people it is transparent, as I said right now, transparent, लोग उसका अलग ही विजुअलाइजेशन लोग शुरू कर देते हैं उसके बाद कि यार ये ट्रांसपेरेंट है तो फिर ये कैसे. So
Yeah,
I mean,
that is because lack of trust. Na? Present system,
yeah,
people
exactly,
have trust
exactly.
in each other. Once
Yeah,
everybody is
absolutely,
understand the importance, then the trust, the deficiency will go. Then all will be,
absolutely,
having a trust
absolutely,
in that system. That's
absolutely, sir,
why.
absolutely. So, Satya sir,
Yeah,
over to you. That what
yeah,
are
yeah.
the key factors in a framework should be there to adopt blockchain in the public sector? Yeah, over to you, sir.
Yeah. Thank you, Professor Akhil. Actually, on your that transparency issue, jokingly, I can say actually, blockchain you can make it a pseudo transparent or a programmable transparent. Actually, so you can make whatever you want to be transparent. Only that will be made transparent. That is the programmability of a blockchain, and especially in the private blockchain actually, because when we are talking of the public sector actually ecosystem and then the strategy or framework, actually we already have a framework. As you know, mighty, we have a national blockchain strategy from framework where are different layers are there. So we have to start from there, especially when you are talking of adaptation of blockchain in the public sector. So government already have a policy, and that policy incidentally this framework is very good or ideally suited for enterprise blockchain or private blockchain, which which our public sector should adopt. Actually, they should not be talking about a public blockchain. They should be talking or adopting the private blockchain or a enterprise blockchain, for which the METI framework is exactly for that. It is not for the in general or private or public blockchain. So that is the starting point. So once that is there, and METI have already made a framework as a government, and that is the policy, then someone has to do the actual implementation part. That also is done by another public sector, and that is called CDAC. CDAC is a department of MIT, Center for Development of Advanced Computer, and luckily we are knowing our great expert, Dr. Ishwari Lakshmi, who is heading this blockchain implementation project of the government. So it has to go there. Actually, they have to bring out a, a sort of template, or what I will call a universal uh, private blockchain for public sector, something like that. So these our public sectors should not be made to use a public blockchain which is not even Indian. Actually, all, as you know, all the public blockchain are someone from outside, and user have to pay fees to that. And when you are talking of adoption of blockchain in the public sector, government should set up a universal, let us say, platform, a blockchain as a platform for the public sector. It will be a private blockchain created by our own people. Like CDAC has been given that job, but I don't know whether there is accountability, or whether there is a milestone, or whether there is a deliverable there, because that is another problem of a public sector. You want to solve the problem of a public sector, like adaptation of blockchain, and you give that thing to another public sector who already have that problem. So that is a problem of here, problem of plenty, what we call it. But we have a solution. The forum like us can collaborate with the CDAC, who has been given that job of creating a solution or use cases for another public sector as a private blockchain. So that is how it has to be handled. We should have a platform like you have ONDC for commerce, you have UPI for payment. Same way for public sector blockchain application or blockchain adoption, you should have another platform in the form of an enterprise blockchain used or open to all the public sector of the country, all the government departments of the country, all the local government, semi-government. That is what is required. Once it is there, available to everybody on a open access, free of cost basis. You don't have to pay gas. What we, as you know, the blockchain, the main problem of blockchain is you have to pay gas for any using it actually. So if it is public sector, why can't government create that platform for all of them through their own expertise through CDAC? And then all the public sector are told this is a platform. It is like having a national broadband link. There is a network, national broadband, which BSNL was to create. Now every public sector can take that, like NKN, National Knowledge Network. So there is a government thing, and each university of the government, they get 1 gigabit link actually, something like that. So it will be a platform which will provide private blockchain as a service to the public sectors of the government, which will be funded and created by the government. It will, so there will be no issue of the security. It will not be a public blockchain. No data will go outside. No transparency issue will come because it will remain within the government domain. That is the way it can really help and motivate all the public sectors to do it, because initial work, and that is called the sunk cost, would have been already done by the government itself actually. So that is what I like to suggest, Professor Akhil.
Thank you so much. Thank you so much for the input. Over to you, Rakesh sir. Rakesh sir, I mean, just to add to the highlighted points, what is your view in terms of what kind of the industrial framework should be the regulator or legal perspective or anything, whatever you feel, which will make conducive for public sector to adopt the technologies like blockchain and be more open to it. Over to you, sir.
See, we were talking about why implementation hits roadblock in public services generally. So for that, we have to create a public awareness. Public awareness has to be created. We have to foster a culture of trust. To tell in very clear terms, public, that it is for your benefit. It will bring more efficiency in the public service, which you are a beneficiary. right? So you will be directly benefited. That kind of awareness has got to be created, and it will definitely give a fillip to blockchain implementation in public services. Another thing is that this will also foster participation. We have to encourage participation of the public in general in blockchain implementation, so that they create a sense of ownership in the solution. Capacity building has already been mentioned, that we have to the capacity building has to be given a very proper focus before we even embark upon implementation of blockchain in public services. Then incremental adoption. I feel that the adoption has to be incremental. That is, you start with less complex use cases, and then gradually you move to the complex cases. So incremental adoption will go a long way in making adoption of blockchain in public services successful. A regulatory framework, I already mentioned that, three aspects in a regulatory framework has got to be seen: the legal, security, and privacy. Privacy is of paramount concern. So therefore, clear standards of data privacy in case of blockchain implementation. There is a law already in making for data privacy in general. But for blockchain implementation, this gets a specific importance. So we have to see that. In our country, as far as I understand, even the legitimacy of smart contracts is also doubtful. So therefore, government has to very clearly legalize smart contracts. The smart contracts are legal. So any confusion about this has got to be removed by creating, if required, by passing, by framing rules, or by suitable public awareness programs. We have to make it very clear that smart contracts are legalized and they are enforceable. So all these routine processes can be automated through smart contracts. That will be another very big use case for blockchain in public services. Interoperability standards must be defined, because in public there are dry public services. Even if government embarks upon creating a blockchain platform and mandates that all other public services, they should ride on that, they should use that particular platform. There also interoperability standards have got to be taken in mind, and there also I think the role of regulator will be very important to define the interoperability standards. There are existing in India. The scene is not like that we are going to have a greenfield implementation. There are already IT infrastructure available. So therefore, any implementation of blockchain will have to interoperate with them. So therefore, we have to see that how it can be made interoperable and how it can be safely integrated with the existing complex infrastructure. That also will be a part of regulators' job, in my opinion.
Thank you, sir. I think you have already given the framework completely. So, that's a great way to move forward to. So, over to Kamlesh, sir. Kamlesh, sir, you have heard all of them giving the idealized factors which is required, but that's also kind of a publicity review. So, from your perspective, what is the framework in the ecosystem should be required in terms of making sure blockchain and other technology as well to be adopted much more better in the enterprises? You're mute, Kamlesh. Kamlesh, you're mute. Kamlesh, you're mute.
Okay. So I think already Dr. Rakesh and other senior people talked about like what kind of regulation is required for the public services in terms of adoption perspective. But I think technology perspective also, we have seen couple of regulatory already come from, let's say, Mika is there in Europe and Vara is in Dubai. But similar perspective in India we should also have similar regulation from the different regulators. Let's say last week I think SEBI has announced some kind of fractional ownership for the real estate, some kind of amendment on the existing REIT framework. But this is not going to be helpful until we have a clear regulatory from the government of India, and still let's say SEBI create the regulatory aspect for all the different business verticals, not just only real estate. This is one, and also insurance regulator we have in India, and the like IFSC is doing something interesting work as a creating some kind of, like, they recently announced some tokenization framework in the IPCA. So this is one required, and also this is one for the, but another thing, standardization and regulation thing required from the technology perspective. Also, we need to have a standardization around the technology use and the smart contract interoperability or the blockchain interoperability. That is also critical path.
Good point, Kamlesh. Good point. Over to Venu, sir. I mean, because now, I mean, it's always difficult for the last one to put the point before everybody has already given the points. Want to share more? But Venu, sir, I know you can do that. Please, sir, please, please. Over to you, sir.
All right, so some great points, and I think the discussion was pretty amazing, and insights from the experience says it all. So I think I am learning a lot of new things today. So I appreciate all the conversation. So well, I probably summarize this way. All right, there is one key thing Upadhyay sir has mentioned: education. Education in all levels. So because see, there is a lot a notion of looking at these new technologies in a way that might hamper processes in a different way. And I'm not trying to say the intellectual side of it, but generally the processes might be disturbed. So most of the organizations are reluctant when it comes to private, public especially, would say that the processes are already in place, and then it'll be quite difficult. What I would start with is an education, and then blockchain also comes with something called smart contracts, right? The awareness of smart contracts is important. Now there is something called Ricardian contracts. These have been old, which have a lot of similarities to smart contracts, where you would see Ricardian contracts have a legal framework which underpins the entire execution. So when we are progressing towards the education and blockchain implementation, we kind of have to lay more emphasis on this aspect, where a normal smart contract, if you see, that's more of a rule or a checklist. It's not really smart as such. It's pretty dumb. You have a list of rules that you kind of have, and then you kind of say, if this passed, go to the next step. If this passed, go to the next step. But whereas the Ricardian contracts also have the legal side of it underpinned to it. So when I say that, it would ties up the legal aspects covered. So that's the direction we should take, according to me at least. And largely, when it comes to these implementations in the public sector, I believe that specific use cases have to be utilized, instead of throwing a carpet of use cases. Specific use cases would actually help bring the confidence, because that's where I believe things can change in the adoption of technologies like blockchain, AI, and IoT in a larger spectrum or space, I would say. So we should be looking at a lot of education and organizations like Blockchain Productivity Forum, where Asin sir actually heads that. We have a clear vision of proliferating blockchain and a possible use case where it can work through. And Elteridium, such we understand that we are specific to genre of public-private contracts. We bring in this element, understanding, and then how we facilitate these implementations. So I believe that a clear roadmap has to come up with from the government side, and also facilitate education in every possible way, because we have a lot of people that needs to understand it more specifically to create adoption, and simultaneously choice of making which blockchain should be ideal or which AI should be ideal should be more specific in nature, according to me. That's where I would say.
So, in a concluding remark, Venu, can you also explain why Elteridium's platform can be a good advantage for the public sector? Because you mentioned it, so I just want to.
Yeah, sure. See, well, what as an organization, Elteridium basically strives at two things. Okay, creating seamless experience of public-private partnership contracts from end to end. So it's basically an engine that you're looking at. It's not just a one solution, one target, or one thing that it does. The goal of Elteridium basically is to cover end-to-end process that would create the necessity to resolve two aspects of these engagements, PPP: trust and transparency with real-time audit. How do we do it? Basically, you have these pieces which are complex in nature inside a PPP contract, right from contract selection to, in fact, not even contract selection. Elteridium envisions to ensure that each user or people who want to get into the cycle of PPP are aware of what contracts are basically available from there to participate. Because if you see, visibility of PPPs is also becoming difficult these days because big players are there. So that's the point where Elteridium would start, and then the goal is to have transparency. It's an implementation and delivery. So if you look at it, it's an ecosystem of its own that Elteridium is trying to resolve through blockchain, AI, and IoT. So it's an amalgamation of these technologies, and we're trying to come up with support systems that would ensure quick adoption and deliver results as we intend to do. It's a process that we are already trying. We have reached to a situation where we would do a quick proof of concept if somebody would be interested. I'm sure you are already leading the way. So I would probably say that's how I'd probably put Elteridium at this point, which is unique in its nature. I don't see any other firm specifically for PPPs in India, at least, which is a larger ecosystem of infrastructure and multiple things involved. So I see that benefit out there. So I'm sure everybody would look into how we are doing it, and we can always have an offline discussion if somebody is interested to know about it.
Sure, sure, sure. Venu, thank you so much. So with that, I want to really say that it was splendidly the best conversations in the publicity domain. To be very frank to you, we discussed about exactly how the publicity had evolution had. Rakesh Upadhyay sir, we talked about the operational issues, the legal issues, the foundational principles were given by Banka sir, and then Satya sir, who really coined the term three C's. And then we really, it became more of a conversation. And that's exactly what the objective of a good panel discussion is, when people are more open and they feel that it's an open discussion, there's no question to be guided for. And Venu and Kamlesh, sir, thank you so much for giving the actual integration of technology into it, and exactly what are the challenges to it, and how the adoption can become a hurdle, and now how can we make the enabler of it. The bottom line framework which has been given by this panel, I think that can become a foundation for the next conversations for many of the speakers, many of the industries for us. So, and thank you so much, all of you, Mr. Pankaj sir, Rakesh sir, Satya sir, Vedu, and Kamlesh, for your time, and also for the patience. We were supposed to close this by 1 hour, but the point of the conversation was so good that it extended for more than 1.5 hours. And I'm seriously was not feeling bored, and that's a good intention behind it, and all credit goes to the speakers, and not at all with me. It's purely for the speakers, because my conversation was hardly limited, and the way you people have literally come out well is really, really good. Thank you so much for your time. Thank you so much for your time, and
Yeah,
all the
thank you.
participants in the audience who are seeing in YouTube. Any questions, please
Thank
mail us.
you.
Please go to the LinkedIn. Please go to YouTube. We'll be happy to answer it. Thank you so much.